Hello and welcome to the presentation video that discusses the database and the API. Now we're going to look into Strapi to see how the database holds the content that makes the site up. First we have the restaurants, and I have a total of 6. And then their dishes. So each restaurant has between 4 to 6, 7 dishes, something like that. And each one, has been assigned to the restaurant. And then we have users, of course. These are, different tests that I've done, during the development. And so basically, with me using the default database with Strapi, if I go to deploy on render, it loses the data. So I know that it's not a database that I would truly use in production out in the real life world. But for this purpose, I selected to go with that because MongoDB Strapi doesn't support it anymore, so I couldn't use MongoDB. So that is a downside because, no one wants to repopulate their database, every time you go to deploy a change. So, and it even loses the users too. So that's a negative, so, but I also know that that's not a real world example. I don't even know if Strapi would be something I'd use in the real world or not. But if this was an actual database that wouldn't lose its data every time changes were deployed to the back end, the information that would be persistently kept are all the information. So it would contain it would maintain how many users you have, how many restaurants are there, and all the orders. So everything within the database that's currently being used would be something that would be held persistently inside the database. The only thing I had to refactor in the code was I had to point it from, instead of it being coming from the local host to like pull images and so forth, it actually points to render now. Okay, so here, for example, instead of pulling the images from localhost, it's pulling it straight from, my directory on render. So that's really the only, refactoring I did. Again, the only true problem that really gave me so much heartache and I searched and searched for days was the Mongo issue. And then also when I figured out why my images weren't pulling, that I needed to replace all those localhost URLs, then it was a simple fix, from there. But Mongo was the main problem in this whole project. Regarding if I used a RESTful or a GraphQL API, I went with GraphQL. And the API endpoints are, under here, under config, API. It connects to Strapi, of course, where it shows the dishes and so forth. But then also the database. So it shows the connection in production to SQLite. And let's see, the server JSON, security. I think that was pretty much it. And then the other API endpoint, of course, is Stripe. Stripe was pretty simple. Once I figured out, where to accurately add the secret code in the public code, then it was really simple. So that wraps up the presentation that goes into the database and the API portion of the project. I am looking forward to creating an environment in actual production of something we would do out here, without Strappy, to see how that would be. So I'm excited for the journey ahead.